It happened a few weeks ago. I was taking care of my mom while juggling work. It felt normal, but something was off. One stormy night, I found myself home alone. I decided to sort through old family documents in the attic. I hadn't planned it, but I figured it was time to clear out the place. The attic was dark and musty. I climbed the creaky stairs, feeling the air press down on me. I opened boxes, finding faded photos and old, dusty books. I couldn't tell what I was searching for, just something that linked me to my past. Then, I noticed an envelope, yellowed and tucked away in a corner. My father's name was on it. My heart raced as I picked it up. I tore open the envelope, and a chill ran through me. The letter spoke of a pact he made. It mentioned sacrifices and promises. I was confused. Why would he write that? I didn't feel scared, just lost. I left the attic, feeling like I had uncovered something I shouldn't have. Days passed, but things got strange. One night, I noticed markings on the walls. They looked like symbols, drawn hastily, and I didn't recognize them. I thought I was imagining it, maybe just too tired from work. But each time I turned around, I felt eyes on me. Then one late night, I heard my name whispered. It was soft, like a ghost brushing against my ear. I froze. I called out, but no one answered. My mom was asleep in her room. The whispers came again, an echo of my name. I thought I saw a shadow in the hallway, but couldn't focus on it. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself it was just the storm. The days turned into weeks and everything escalated. The markings grew, and I lost sleep. I wanted to tell someone, but who would believe me? I felt silly, scared even. I knew deep down that something was wrong. My father's legacy loomed over me, and I didn't know who to turn to for answers. One evening I stood at the foot of the attic stairs again. It felt cold, like the house was calling me. I hesitated, gripping the railing. The wind howled outside, and then I heard my name again, louder. Panic filled me. I realized I had a choice. I could stay down here in my safe space, or risk confronting whatever was up there. But I was terrified. I felt the darkness creeping closer as I took a step towards the stairs. I didn't know what was waiting for me up there. As I climbed the stairs, the shadows danced in the corners. The air grew colder, and I felt a tightness in my chest. Every inch felt wrong. My heart raced as I reached the top. I stood there just listening. Was my father begging for mercy from beyond the grave, or was something darker at play? I stepped into the attic, the door creaking ominously behind me. The dim light strained against the shadows, fighting to expose whatever lingered in that unsettling space. I took a breath and scanned the room. My heart was thumping, each beat echoing in the silence. A strange energy pulsed in the air, and I felt a prickling sensation at the back of my neck. The letter felt heavy in my pocket, its contents swimming in my mind. My father's pact haunted me. What had he done, and what did it mean for me? I moved towards the nearest box, hoping to distract myself. Maybe more remnants of the past would shed light on my family's history. I began rummaging through old clothes and knickknacks, feeling like I was digging through more than just boxes. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the attic, causing the window to rattle violently. I jumped back, startled. I peered outside, but the storm had subsided, a deceptive calm settling outside. I shook my head and turned my attention back to the clutter. Then I saw something glinting in the corner. My breath hitched as I approached it, and there it was, a small golden locket buried underneath a pile of dust. I picked it up, the metal warm against my fingers. I opened it, revealing two tiny portraits, one of my father and the other of a woman I didn't recognize. A sense of disconnection washed over me. Who was she? Why did he keep her close? The whispers started again, faint but unmistakable. Panic surged inside me. I dropped the locket and looked around, eyes darting toward the shadows. They seemed to respond, shifting and stretching as if they were alive. The air felt charged, heavy with energy, and then I heard it, my name, clearer this time. It echoed in my ears, and I felt compelled to answer. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to inject courage into my voice. Silence answered me. I glanced back at the locket lying innocently on the floor, a stark reminder of unanswered questions. Just as I bent to pick it up, I noticed the markings I had seen before, settling ominously on the walls. But they weren't just symbols anymore. Now they formed a pattern, a twisted design that seemed to map out something I couldn't decipher. I backed away slowly and bumped into a pile of boxes. My heart dropped as they shifted, toppled, and sent a dust cloud swirling in the air. I coughed, trying to regain my composure. That's when I noticed something below the boxes. A small, hidden door nearly blending in with the floor. It had no handle, just a weathered surface, as if it had been forgotten for years. Before I could think twice, the whispers surged around me, now a chorus of voices. I understood that whatever lay beyond that door was connected to my father's past. I hesitated. Should I open it? An instinct screamed at me to leave, to escape that attic and the darkness that encroached upon my thoughts. But I needed answers. My hands trembled as I weighed my options. Just then everything went dark. The light flickered above, plunging me into a suffocating darkness, and I could feel a presence forming behind me. Someone, or something, was in the house, and it was drawing closer. The air thickened, and I could feel my breath quicken. I resisted the urge to turn around. Instead, I focused on the hidden door and the faint hum of whispers that seemed to seep from it. My fingers brushed against the rough wood, and panic flooded my veins. The shadows danced around me, flickering in and out of existence. My heart raced as I willed myself to move. Each creak of the floor felt louder than the last. The whispers morphed, rising and falling like the tide, but one word cut through the noise. "Open." I clenched my jaw. My mind screamed at me to flee, but curiosity weighed down my feet. I couldn't turn back now. I needed to know. I couldn't let whatever was haunting me win. With a deep breath, I reached for the edge of the door. Before I could make contact, a sudden crash echoed through the attic, startling me. My heart stopped. Was it the wind, or something else? I froze, listening intently. Silence enveloped the room once more. Then I felt a breeze, cold, unnatural, grazing my cheek. It was coming from the hidden door. I glanced back, dreading what I might see, but the dark remained silent. Compelled by a force I couldn't explain, I knelt beside the door. I began to scoop away debris, my hands shaking. What could be behind this door? As I cleared away the last remnants of dust and forgotten memories, I could see it more clearly now. Deep grooves lined the surface, forming a pattern that matched the walls. There was no handle, but a pull at the edge where the wood met the floor. I seized it and tugged hard. The door shuddered but didn't budge. My breath quickened again. A feeling of urgency washed over me. What if it was locked? What if whatever made that presence was keeping it shut? Just then I heard a soft laugh, dark and mocking, curling around me like smoke. It seeped into my bones, and the temperature in the attic plummeted. I pulled again, desperation fueling my strength. With a loud creak, the door jolted open, revealing a dark cavity beyond. A musty scent rushed out, and an ethereal light flickered from within. I squinted, but shadows obscured whatever lay in the depths. It beckoned me forward. Whatever fear I carried was drowned out by a yearning for answers, for closure. I could feel my father's influences spiral around me, urging me to see the truth. Before I could fully process this, the soft rustle of fabric caught my attention. I turned back, and my breath hitched in my throat. There, silhouetted in the doorway, was a figure. I didn't recognize them, yet something in their stance felt familiar. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. The figure smiled, but my instincts screamed danger. You were always meant to find this. As they stepped closer, the light flickered again, illuminating the attic in bursts. I was caught between the darkness of the hidden door and the mysterious figure approaching me. Every instinct told me to run, but I was frozen. Could this person be the key to unraveling my father's secrets? Or would they plunge me deeper into the shadows? I had to know. The figure moved closer, their smile stretching wider as they approached. I felt a chill creep down my spine, and my palms grew clammy. It was more than just an odd familiarity. It was a sense of recognition that sparked a flicker of dread in my mind. "Please, tell me who you are," I insisted, trying to sound braver than I felt. The words felt hollow, and the attic loomed around us as if holding its breath. "I'm someone who knows what really happened," they replied, their voice almost melodic, but with an unsettling undercurrent. "There are truths buried in this house and in your father's past that you're not ready to uncover." "I'm ready," I said, though my voice wavered. "If there's something I need to know, I can handle it." They laughed again, but this sounded different, almost sad. "Are you sure? Some doors once opened cannot be closed again." I shifted my weight, glancing nervously at the darkness behind them. "What do you mean? Are you here to help me? Help you? Or lead you deeper?" They said, tilting their head. "It's not my role to decide." With a glance back at the still open door, I felt an overwhelming urge to explore what lay beyond. But how could I trust this person? Just then, the attic creaked like it was alive, shifting around us. I felt a pulse of energy in the air, and the figure's smile faded slightly. "Be careful," they warned. "Not all that calls to you is benign. Your father made choices. His choices have consequences." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Choices? What kind of choices?" The figure hesitated, their eyes darkening. "That's a story for another time. For now, just know you're not the only one searching for answers." Before I could process that, I felt a tug at my mind. An echo of my father's voice mixed with the whispers from the hidden door. Confusion swirled within me. Why was this happening? And then I felt it. A presence shifting, something pushing against me from the shadows of the attic. My pulse quickened. The air thickened again, filled with tension so palpable I could hardly breathe. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaky. "Show yourself." The figure glanced over my shoulder, their expression shifting to one of concern. "We need to go, now." I hesitated, torn between the pull of the door and the figure beside me. But then the whispering grew louder, more insistent, drowning out everything else. In the flickering light, I noticed the back wall of the attic beginning to warp and change. The patterns in the wood creaked, twisting like a mouth preparing to speak. I felt panic rise in my throat. "Go," the figure urged again, reaching toward me. "Don't let it take you." Before I could react, a surge of force knocked me to the ground. I landed hard, feeling the rough wood press against my skin. When I looked up, the figure was gone, leaving only the echo of their warning. The air rushed back into my lungs. I scrambled to my feet, my heart racing. I had to make a choice. Do I flee or face whatever this was? The door behind me seemed to glow, its warmth drawing me in. That's when I saw it. Rising from the shadows, a hand reached out toward me, fingers curled and beckoning. I shuddered, recognizing the danger. The choice was made for me. I couldn't stay here any longer. But what had I just unleashed? I turned and sprinted for the door, my mind racing with fear. Each step felt like a risk, the darkness behind me pulsating with unknown intent. I hardly thought about what was on the other side of that door. I just wanted to escape whatever was lurking in the attic with me. Slipping through the threshold, I slammed it shut, leaning against it for support. The wooden frame shuddered, a low groan echoing through the hallway. I pressed my ear against the cool surface, searching for signs of life. Silence. Just the pounding of my heartbeat. I stumbled back, my breath coming in quick bursts. What had happened? I was alive, but the figure's words echoed in my mind. Your father made choices. Suddenly, memories of late-night conversations and hushed tones filled my thoughts. My father had always been tight-lipped about his past, like it was a shoebox stuffed under the bed, filled with secrets he never meant to share. I steadied myself and glanced around. The hallway was dark, but my eyes were adjusting. Torn wallpaper and creaky floorboards greeted me like old friends, comfort and fear mingling together. I needed to find out more. The attic was one thing, but there was a whole house behind me and I wasn't done searching. Instead of retreating, I ventured further into the dim corridor. The air felt heavy, as if it were vibrating with some hidden energy, urging me to look deeper. I headed for my father's study. His bookshelves were filled with dusty novels, but one in particular caught my eye. The thick, leather-bound journal resting on the desk. As I pulled it closer, the familiar smell of aged paper filled my senses. I hesitated, my fingers hovering just above the cover. Was this another way to open a door I wouldn't want to close? I took a breath and opened it, pages crackling under my touch. The entries were scattered and sporadic. They detailed a life I had never known, of secrets my father had kept hidden from me, mentions of deals made in the dead of night and shadows that whispered his name. Each word increased my unease. Was this the truth the figure was talking about? That's when I noticed something scrawled hastily in the corner of one page, a name, the same name that had been whispered in the attic. The Warden. It felt like an omen, a clear warning wrapped in dread. What did it mean? Then a sudden noise made me freeze. I heard it again, a low creak followed by a soft rustling. Someone or something was moving in the house. My gut twisted in knots. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. No response came, just the relentless creaking of the old house settling around me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The threat was real, and I knew I needed to act fast. My father's journal rested in my hands like a hot stove, and the anxiety surged again. I had to find out more, to confront whatever was haunting not only me but also my family. With a sudden rush of determination, I made my way toward the sound, ready to face whatever lay ahead. That was when the lights flickered overhead and everything plunged into darkness. I staggered back, heart racing. The sudden darkness felt like a suffocating blanket wrapping around me. I blinked, trying to adjust my eyes, but the void was absolute. My mind was a chaotic whirl of fear and confusion. What was happening? I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, praying the screen would cut through the blackness. I pulled it out and turned on the flashlight, the beam slicing through the dark. In front of me, the hallway stretched like a gaping mouth, almost mocking my fear. Then I heard it again, a sound more distinct this time. The rustling shifted, moving closer. "Hello?" I called out, though my voice trembled. Fragments of my father's journal swam in my mind. Deals and shadows. Was this the consequence of his choices? I took a hesitant step forward, the beam of light dancing across the walls. It caught a glimpse of something at the end of the hallway. A figure. I squinted into the gloom. My heart raced with uncertainty. Was it the Warden? "Show yourself," I shouted, my voice cracking. The rustling grew louder, echoing through the hallway. I felt paralyzed. Was I ready for whatever lay ahead? As I shifted my weight, the floor creaked underfoot, and the sound halted abruptly. The tension in the air was thick, almost palpable. And then, without warning, my phone's light flickered, dimming to a whisper before dying completely. I was plunged back into darkness. Panic surged in my chest. "No, no, no," I muttered, hitting the side of the phone, but it didn't respond. A breath hung in the air. It wasn't mine. I felt a presence, cold and watchful. I had to regain control. Gritting my teeth, I let my other senses guide me. I could hear the faint shuffle of footsteps, hesitant but aware. My stomach churned. I pressed my back against the wall, hoping to remain unseen. I needed a plan. The journal, it had mentioned something about a pact. What had my father done? My mind was racing as I remembered the entry where the warden's name had appeared. There had to be some connection. My father, the figure, the deals, it was all twisted together. Forcing myself to breathe, I crept toward the nearest room, a place to hide, to gather my thoughts. I wasn't sure if I could trust what lay in front of me, but instinct pushed me forward. I nudged the door open silently, peeking inside. But before I could step in, the sound grew louder, sharper. Barely visible in the dim light, a shape loomed deeper in the hallway. My blood ran cold. Whoever, or whatever it was, had come to find me. Then everything shattered. A loud crash echoed from the attic above, a roar that shook the walls. The figure in the hallway froze in place, turning toward the sound. This was my chance. I darted into the room, closing the door softly behind me just as the silhouette lunged forward. I pressed my back against the door, heart pounding in my throat. Whatever secrets were buried within this house were clawing their way to the surface, and I was right in the center of it all. What had my father done to attract this kind of threat? The room was thick with tension, a small reprieve from the chaos outside. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, using the darkness to shroud my racing pulse. My eyes adjusted, allowing me to make out the shapes around me. A dusty old dresser, an empty closet, and a small bed covered in sheets that seemed to have been untouched for years. I needed to find something useful, anything that could help me navigate this nightmare. I hesitated at the closet, its door slightly ajar. Each creak of the floor beneath me felt like a shout in the silence, but I pushed forward. Inside, there were a few forgotten items. Broken toys, a tattered sweater, and a small box that looked out of place. I reached for the box and lifted it carefully. The lid creaked open, revealing a collection of old keys and a brittle piece of paper. I pulled out the paper, my heart racing as I scanned the notes scribbled in my father's shaky handwriting. It mentioned the warden again. I read about the key to the truth and a hidden room. This was at least a lead. I clutched the paper tight, feeling the weight of it in my palms as I stood frozen, half listening for any sounds outside. Then I heard it, a heavy thud that ricocheted through the house, making the walls shudder. The figure from the hallway was still nearby. I had to act quickly. I glanced back at the dresser and decided it might hide something useful. I inched across the room, the floor creaking treacherously beneath me. As I rifled through the drawers, my fingers brushed against something cold. A flashlight. I yanked it out, checking to see if it worked. To my relief, the beam flickered to life, illuminating the dim space. I aimed the light around the room, excited to see what I could uncover. The keys clinked quietly as I dropped them into my pocket for safekeeping. I was running out of time. Whatever threat lurked in the hall wouldn't wait for me to solve my father's riddles. Suddenly I heard voices, a low murmur but unmistakable. My heart dropped. Did my father have accomplices? Or was this the warden with his cronies? The fear crept back in, but I steadied myself. I had to see who it was. I crept back to the doorway and peeked out, shining the flashlight down the corridor. The scene before me sent chills down my spine. Two figures stood near the staircase, their faces partially obscured by shadows, speaking in hushed tones. I couldn't make out their words, but I could feel the intent looming in the air. Hastily, I ducked back into the room, heart pounding. What did I do? Could I outrun them? The attic noise faded, but the whispers only grew louder. Was there a way out? I had to find the hidden room. The promise of answers waited on the other side. Just then, I noticed a faint light creeping from under the floorboards. My pulse quickened. What if that was it? I knelt down, using the flashlight to get a clearer view. My fingers brushed against a loose board. That's when I realized it wasn't just a barrier. It was a doorway. I needed to make a choice. Face whatever was in the hallway or figure out what lay beneath. Time was running out. I took a deep breath, settling onto the floor, ready to pry the board loose. Whatever came next couldn't be worse than what I was already up against. I gripped the loose board, adrenaline sharpening my focus. With a quick pull, I pried it free, the wood creaking as it gave way. The faint glow from below spilled into the room, revealing a narrow space beneath the floor. I crawled over and peered down. It was dark, but I could see the outline of something. Maybe more keys, or evidence my father had left behind. The voices from the hallway swelled, becoming more urgent. I needed to move. I dropped the flashlight into the gap, and it landed with a soft thud, scattering light across the cramped space. My heart raced as I squeezed through the opening, feeling splinters bite into my palms. Once inside, I crouched low, careful not to breathe too loudly. The voices were clearer now, their words sharp and unsettling. "You have to keep it hidden," one of them said. I couldn't help but strain to hear more. "If the warden finds out we've let her in, it's over." My body tensed. They were talking about me. I edged further into the darkness, compelled by a desperate need to understand. I felt along the walls with my hands, searching for something, anything, that could give me a clue about what was happening. In the far corner, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. I pulled it out and held it close, recognizing it as a locket, its surface tarnished and rough. There was no picture inside, just a folded piece of paper tucked away. I opened it, revealing another note in my father's shaky handwriting. This one was more hurried, as if he'd scrawled it in fear. "Trust no one," it read. "The truth protects but also endangers. The warden sees all." The floor above me creaked again, reminding me of my precarious position. I tucked the locket into my pocket, my mind racing. I wanted to understand why I was at the center of this chaos. But for now, all I could do was listen. The figures began to move. I could hear them getting closer to the stairs. Panic surged within me. I scrambled across the space, trying to find an exit. As I moved, I noticed a crack in the wall leading further into the darkness. It was my only option. I squeezed through the narrow opening and found myself in a small, hidden chamber, damp and musty. The beam from my flashlight flickered as I swung it around, revealing shelves lined with dusty books and files. Each one could hold secrets to this twisted reality. But I wasn't alone. From the far corner, a shadow moved. I froze, heart thumping madly. "Who's there?" I called out, voice trembling. It felt foolish, but I had to know. Silence stretched on, only the sound of my own harsh breathing filling the space. Then, something shifted again, and the shadow stepped into the light. It was a person. A woman, her expression apprehensive but also determined. "Hello?" she said softly, holding up her hands as if to show she meant no harm. "I think you need my help." Questions flooded my mind. Who was she? What did she know? But before I could speak, a loud crash echoed from above. The proximity of danger was growing closer, and I had a choice to make. Trust this stranger or run back into the hallway. The decision pressed down hard, just as I heard footsteps descending the stairs. It was now or never. I hesitated, my mind racing. I could hear the footsteps getting louder, the dread creeping closer. I looked back at the woman, whose eyes were wide with concern. "You need to come with me," she said urgently, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath and nodded, deciding that staying here was not an option. "Okay, but who are you?" "I'm someone who knows your father," she replied, glancing toward the stairs as the footsteps grew nearer. He warned me about the warden. You don't have much time. Without waiting for an answer, she turned and moved toward the back of the chamber, her silhouette skimming along the wall. I followed closely, trying to keep my breath silent. We reached a dark doorway that led to another narrow passage. The woman gestured for me to go first, then slipped in behind me. The air was colder here, and a sense of urgency pushed us forward. "What did my father tell you?" I asked, desperate for information. "The truth," she said, "but it's complicated. He made promises that neither of you should have been involved in." She paused for a moment. "Your father wasn't just trying to protect you. He was trying to protect everyone from what's been unleashed." I processed her words, but every answer just led to more questions. "What do you mean? What did he unleash?" "I can't explain it all now," she said, glancing back nervously. "But you need to know that the warden will come after you. He wants what your father left behind." Before I could respond, we heard voices from the hall behind us. They were close. She grabbed my arm, pulling me deeper into the passage. We moved quickly, the only light coming from a small window up high. I noticed old symbols etched into the walls, trembling like shadows in the dim light. "You have to trust me," she urged, her expression fierce and unyielding. "I have a way to help you." I wanted to argue, to demand specifics, but I couldn't afford hesitation. The sounds from the hallway echoed, and the urgency of her words gripped me. "Okay, I'm trusting you," I said, not sure if I should even believe her. We finally reached a heavy door at the end of the passage. The woman pulled it open just a crack. I peered around her shoulder and saw a darkened alley beyond, strewn with debris. "This leads to the outside," she said, urgency coating every word. "We can't let them find us." Suddenly a loud bang echoed behind us, reverberating through the hall like thunder. My breath caught in my throat. They were coming for us, and we did not have much time. The pounding footsteps echoed again, a stark reminder of our dwindling chances. "That sound came from the floor above," I whispered, anxiety knotting my stomach. "What if they—" But before I could finish, the door swung open further and light flooded in. I squinted and saw a tall figure standing in the shadows, blocking our path. "There you are," he said with a chilling calm, his voice dripping with menace. My heart dropped. I had no idea who he was, but I could see the truth in his eyes. He was a threat. Rather than retreating, instinct propelled me forward. I needed to escape and find out what lay ahead of me. Just then, I caught a glimpse of movement behind him. Another figure appeared, and I recognized the shape, one of the voices I had heard earlier. Everything felt like it was spiraling, but as I squeezed through the door, I made a decision. I was not going back. I had to uncover the extremes of my father's secrets, and I wouldn't let anyone or anything stand in my way. I burst through the door into the alley, the cool air hitting me like a splash of ice water. Ahead, darkness stretched out in all directions. I barely registered my surroundings as I fled, the woman close on my heels. We sprinted down the narrow path, my heart pounding with adrenaline. With each step, I felt like we were leaving a nightmare behind. Yet something primal warned me that danger lurked just out of sight. Behind us, the rumbles of footsteps grew louder, like ominous thunder heralding an approaching storm. I glanced back, my breath hitching as I saw a figure emerge from the doorway. It was the man from before, the sinister presence whose voice I had heard. He stood framed by the dim light of the attic entrance for a brief moment, silhouetted against the shadows clinging to the old house and the alley beyond. "He's not far behind," the woman urged. I refocused on my escape, adrenaline blazing through my veins. We zigzagged through the alley, racing past piles of old bricks and wooden crates that shaded us from unwelcome eyes. But with every rush of wind, I felt like the shadows clawed at my ankles, urging me to look back. Yet I pressed on, determined to break free from whatever legacy my father had tied me to. "Do you know where we're going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the panic threading through my chest. "Down to the edge of town. There's a spot near the old mill," she replied, glancing over her shoulder. "I doubt they'll expect us to head that way." Old Mill. The name stirred something in my memory, a hint of dusk-lit shadows from childhood memories. I remembered my father warning me to keep away from that area, talk of cursed ground and things better left undisturbed. But in this moment I had no choice but to trust her. We rounded a corner, and the sound of breakers crashing against the shore echoed in the distance. I felt the ground beneath our feet change from cracked pavement to gravel, and soon the smell of water brushed against my senses. Had we really made it to the edge of town? The path narrowed, flanked by patches of sparse grass and gnarled trees that seemed unable to let go of their misery. I turned back to check if we were still being pursued, but everything was quiet now, a stark contrast to the chaos clawing at us just moments before. As we reached the edge of the brook, I could see the silhouette of the old mill just beyond the trees, crumbling and covered in shadows. Standing there, it felt like something ancient loomed over us, waiting. "Why did your father want to keep this place hidden?" she asked, her voice earnest. "What did he do?" I hesitated, my thoughts racing back to the notes, the whispers, and the shadows. "He made a pact," I finally admitted, the weight of the words heavy on my tongue. "A deal he never explained, and I feel it. The shadow of that deal is what's after me now." The woman's expression turned serious, her brows knitting together with understanding. "Then we have to break it. If you're caught, you might not be as fortunate as your father." But what did breaking it mean? Could it be as simple as facing the warden? The thought made my skin crawl. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching us, lurking just out of sight. "Let's get inside the mill," I said, determination bubbling within me. "We might find something that explains everything." We crept cautiously toward the entrance, the air thick with the smell of damp wood and age. But as we reached the door, I felt a jolt of hesitation. What lay beyond? That ancient darkness, deep with secrets woven through generations. I took a breath, steeling my resolve to confront whatever waited. "Are you ready?" I asked, glancing at her one last time. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, posture strong but eyes betraying the fear we both felt. I pushed the door open, its creak echoing throughout the empty space. The interior was cloaked in shadows, with beams of moonlight slicing through the cracked windows. Dust hung in the air, illuminated like tiny stars. We stepped inside, and the door groaned ominously behind us, sealing off the outside world. I turned to the woman who was scanning the room, anticipation electrifying the air. "What next?" I whispered. "Look for anything connected to your father," she urged, her voice steady despite the darkness swirling around us. "Memories, relics, it could all be here." And so we began to explore, each step echoing in the silence, searching for the remnants of my father's choices, his sacrifices. I felt the weight of his legacy like a chain pulling me down, threatening to entrap me once again. As we searched, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. The air thrummed with an energy that felt alive, and shadows danced mockingly around us. But in that eerie stillness, I also felt a flicker of hope. I was moving forward instead of running in fear. Whatever truth awaited in this mill, I was ready to face it, prepared to confront not only the darkness of my father's past, but the shadows that continued to spiral around my present. Yet behind it all lingered the uncertainty. Had I truly broken free, or was I merely stepping deeper into the heart of the mystery? That question loomed, heavy as the secret still hidden in the shadows.